Hello everybody, it's Who Was Phone here, and we're back to do part 4 of the Dark Souls 1 playthrough. As always, a huge shout out to everybody that's shown me any sort of support on Tumblr or YouTube by liking, reblogging, subscribing, etc. Even if you haven't been doing any of those things, just giving these videos a watch, I really appreciate it. So, first thing we're going to do today, well I guess first thing to address today, is that you're going to see that my Estus Flask has been leveled up. Again, this is the second time I'm recording this. The first time I started recording, my mic cut off halfway through and I didn't notice until I went back and watched the recording, which is very frustrating because I actually really liked the commentary that I had the first time around. So I guess hopefully I can keep that same kind of quality, but inevitably because of those technical difficulties, I've done things off camera again, accidentally. One of those things where we freed an NPC from the Undead Burg, the lower Undead Burg, which I will show you. We got a couple of item sets. We obviously upgraded our Estus Flask. Haven't leveled up yet. The only other thing we did was we had gotten a dialogue from Andre down here, and we had attempted to fight the Capra Demon. So I'll show you how to clear out that level, where everything is, any items that I picked up during that level. But luckily, because a lot of the video in the first part was item descriptions, commentary, and then running through the upper Undead Burg, we didn't miss a whole bunch. We'll start off how I started off last time, and that is going to be with item descriptions. So I realized at the end of video 3 I forgot to go through a couple of ones we'd gotten towards the end, like the gargoyle weapons, the Twin Humanities, and I'd also forgotten we picked up an item from the Black Knight that I'd killed off camera in episode 3. So we're going to start by examining the gargoyle halberd and gargoyle shield. Here it is. Halberd of the gargoyle guarding the Bell of Awakening in the Undead Church. Perfectly standard bronze halberd without any special power. Pretty self-explanatory, just a regular bronze halberd. You'll see that it stacks up almost evenly with the regular halberd. The only thing that is different is that it has slightly higher physical damage, base physical damage, 115 as opposed to 110, and then its attack type is regular and has no thrust attack, so you cannot use it with a shield up. Weighs the same amount, has the same parameters required to wield it, and has the same scaling. The next thing, we have the gargoyle shield. Bronze shield of the gargoyle guarding the Bell of Awakening in the Undead Church. The gargoyle's skin is tough by itself, and perhaps its shield may have been a prop, for it is a rare example of a metal shield that does not reduce physical damage 100%. As you can see, that is the case. 85% physical damage reduction. Weighs 4 pounds, 12 strength to wield it. How it stacks up to the other shields, it's actually, not a great shield, not a terrible shield. The Grasscrest shield is better in physical and magic, but it does have superior fire and lightning resistances. And it has 5 more points of stability, which really isn't that much in the long run. What else we got today? We have, the blue Titanite chunk that I got from the Black Knight. Titanite chunk for weapon reinforcement. Blue Titanite has powerful magic energy. Reinforces magic weapons to +9 and enchanted weapons to +4. With the discovery of chunks in Lordran, the race to locate the legendary slabs has begun. But could they be mere myth? So, this is one of the special Titanite chunks. I believe green has its own chunk, and blue has its own chunk. We're not going to be using blue Titanite because, as you can see from the item description, it reinforces magic weapons and enchanted weapons that benefit from intelligence, and we are a faith character, so instead of that, we are going to be using divine and occult. These are interesting items, the upgrade materials, because it kind of brings up the question, what exactly is Titanite? Why is it here? What does it do what it does? And once we get a Titanite slab, we're going to be able to see exactly what it is and why it's so important. The next thing we have to examine is something that we got last episode for the co-op, and this is the sunlight medal. This faintly warm medal, engraved with the symbol of the sun, is the ultimate honor, awarded to those who summon the warrior of sunlight and complete a goal. The symbol represents Lord Gwyn's firstborn, who lost his deity status and was expunged from the annals. But the old god of war still watches closely over his warriors. This is actually one of the bigger lore items in the game. because of who we get it from, what covenant's associated with, and then who is associated with that covenant. You remember that this is the item that you get from summoning Warriors of Sunlight and completing boss fights, and this is given to you by Solaire. That's interesting in and of itself because Solaire, being the leader of the Warriors of Sunlight, the Covenant head, means that he has some control over who gets in, and he has some control over where he is summoned. So you see from the item description that Lord Gwyn's firstborn lost his deity status and was expunged from the annals, and that he was a god of war. We know that Solaire is a pretty formidable warrior, and it says that the old god of war, still watches closely over his warriors. So that has led a lot of people to believe that Solaire is actually the firstborn of Lord Gwyn, the expunged god of war. And there is some evidence, including this item description, that lends us some credibility to that theory. But there are other items that can discredit it. And really, it's mostly up to the player to decide. I don't know if FromSoft has actually gone on record and saying whether or not Solaire is or is not the firstborn of Lord Gwyn. But we'll see more item descriptions that can convince us either way later. But for now, it's an interesting thought to keep in mind. The next things we have are the moss clumps that we got from the demonic foliage, the darker garden. So the bleeding of a blood red moss clump is the medicinal red moss clump that reduces bleeding buildup. Bleeding builds up when attacked by sharp blades or spikes, and once triggered causes severe damage. Use this moss clump before it reaches this point. Yeah, we're going to see some creatures that cause bleeding later on in this playthrough. In the lower Undead Burg, just about every enemy there causes bleeding, which is pretty annoying. We also have the purple moss clump, which is a medicinal purple moss clump that reduces poison buildup and cures poison. Poison builds up in the body, and when it breaks out, it causes gradual damage over a period of time. Poison can be exasperating, so be certain to carry the needed quantity of these moss clumps when destined for an afflicted area. Very good advice. We're going to be needing between 5 and 10 of these, I think, when we go to Blighttown. The Poison Swamp is an area that poisons you passively as you walk through it. You can offset that with Estus because it doesn't kill you very fast as opposed to Toxic. But it's always good to keep these on you. You never know when you're going to need them. The other items we have to examine are the Alluring Skull from episode 1 or 2, forget which one. A skull with a meekly lingering souls. Throw to shatter and spread souls to attract certain types of enemies. Souls are a concentration of life, and the life-starved hollows are lured by its power. Not effective for all enemies. So in this item description, we see an interesting point being brought up about the nature of souls and the soul. So it says that souls are a concentration of life, and life-starved hollows are lured by its power. We know that hollows are deprived of not only souls, but humanity as well. So that brings us to ask the question, what distinguishes humanity from the soul? And what does it mean to have a soul? What does it mean to have humanity? And through some other item descriptions that we're going to see right now, we can kind of examine the idea of what humanity symbolizes and what it means to be human, and kind of the nature of being human. So these were items that are featured pretty significantly, humanity and the twin humanities, but we actually never looked at the item description. Humanity, a rare tiny black sprite found on corpses, used to gain 1 humanity and restore a large amount of HP. This black sprite is called humanity, but little is known about its true nature. If the soul is the source of all life, then what distinguishes the humanity we hold within ourselves? That is a very good question indeed, and it has led to a lot of speculation. I believe Miyazaki has actually gone on record in the DesignWorks interviews saying that humanity is fragments of the Dark Soul that the furtive pygmy got in the opening cinematic, and that humans are all descendants of the Dark Soul. So when humans propagate, so does humanity, and humanity are actually the source of the dark. So this whole Age of Dark, Age of Fire coming to an end thing is directly a result of humanity propagating and spreading the Dark Soul. But what is humanity exactly? What distinguishes the humanity we hold in ourselves from inherent humanity or the soul? And that's something that is probably one of the key concepts or themes in Dark Souls, what it means to be human. And we'll see that having more humanity can mean maybe being more of a human, a better person. We know that clerics have more humanity than other undead, We know from the Crestfallen Warrior, he said that we can gain back our humanity easily by trying to butter up a cleric and get yourself summoned. Clerics known to have more humanity might imply that they are somehow more pure or better people than regular undead or have some sort of higher purpose. But we know that Petrus of Thorland is a cleric, and he's one that features significantly through this game via his side story. And we know that he's kind of a piece of shit. We're going to see evidence of that later. But that brings up the question, you know, does having more humanity necessarily mean that you're more of a human? Or what does more of a human mean? Maybe we're misinterpreting what it means. Maybe it's not some sort of scale where more humanity equals being like a better person. Because we also see that the Dark Wraiths, who are invaders that steal humanity from living undead, by nature they're going to have more humanity because they use their power to kill and steal. But that doesn't make them good people at all. In fact, I would argue that makes them probably among the worst covenant in the game in terms of alignment. And then it said in some of their item descriptions that, you know, they have a constant thirst for this humanity, that they have this kind of greed that comes with obtaining humanity, and that might be a metaphorical way of saying that greed is part of human nature, that part of being human is to have desires and goals, whether or not those goals are wholesome or not. So that's a theme that we can examine further as we go on and we see some Dark Wraith NPCs and Dark Wraith items. The Dark Wraiths are more prominent in the second half of the game when we can access their covenant, and maybe we'll join them and see what they're all about. But for now, I think that's all we need to talk about really on the humanity side, and that was the last item description that we needed to go through. So I started off this second recording here because we have some dialogue that we might be able to get back from Andre. Again, like the last video, I'm sorry I lost it, but if he doesn't give us everything we're looking for, I can link a video in the description that will show exactly the amount of dialogue he has at this point in the game.
Well, hello again. You seem to be doing all right. Need anything forged? I know little of the Darkroot Garden, although I've heard rumors of a divine blacksmith who resides there. Those who get stumped in the catacombs seek him for divine weapons.
So that's a little bit of a gameplay and a lore significant piece of advice we get from Andre. So the graveyard that we were in earlier, I said that we couldn't actually permanently kill those skeletons without a divine weapon. And people who are stumped and they're coming here to ask Andre what he knows, tell us about the divine blacksmith. And we are going to be going to that divine blacksmith and getting the divine ember so that we can ascend these weapons into divine weapons. For now, we're not going to do that. I don't think we have enough ways of mitigating magic damage for that to be worth our time without dying to the boss. That was actually the last piece of dialogue that he has to offer once you expend all of his other dialogue options at this point. Hopefully, just by spamming the talk option, we might be able to get that other dialogue back, but it's not looking good.
I know little.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate.
I'll be seeing you then. Be careful out there.
That's very unfortunate. So I'll link you guys to a description, or a video in the description, where you can see all of his dialogue. I mean, nothing we can really do about that, sort of restarting and then getting a character all the way over here again, which I might do. I don't know. We'll see how we perform against the Capra. If that's the case, I might just upload a shorter video after this with all the dialogue options we missed. But I think I accidentally rested that bonfire, so we can't Homeward Bone back to Firelink Shrine. Not too bad. We have the shortcut unlocked. Nothing else we really need to do in the Undead Parish. You can farm those guys out there for Titanite shards. I know the Baldur Knights drop Titanite shards and their armor. Be pretty useful. The Baldur shield is very good, as I said last time, as is the Baldur side sword. But we don't need any of those things. We might want to upgrade our Claymore before we fight the demon. He was giving me some trouble in the last video because we just didn't do a whole lot of damage to him. And we took a whole lot of damage because we don't have the endurance to wield armor. Petrus doesn't have any more dialogue for us, so we don't have to worry about that. We are going to get started with the Undead Berg now, and I'll go ahead and regain body form to be consistent with the last video. Okay. While I was talking to Andre, you saw that I kind of absorbed some sort of energy, and that now I have 11 Estus Flask charge instead of 10. And the reason for that is when you're standing in the vicinity of a bonfire and another player kindles it, you actually, every other player that's standing next to that bonfire gets an extra Estus charge, which is cool. That's one of those cool intergame interactions that makes Dark Souls such an interesting game. I usually take care of these guys instead of just running by them because they can follow you through at the level, which can be kind of annoying. Getting a sneak attack. That rat can drop humanity, so I make a habit of killing him every single time I come through. Because, you know, it takes one shot to kill him, and if you're going to get something free from it, potentially, you know, why not? You see we open this shortcut. I'll show you the way that we used to get here. Maybe we'll beat the Capra Demon, or attempt to beat the Capra Demon before we do that, so we can just have a free run through the level. There is another merchant here at the end of the aqueduct, and it's the second undead merchant we see.
You still have your senses about you, then why won't you buy some of my moss? I need your souls.
Kinda creepy. She sells some good stuff though. Blood red and purple moss clump, as well as the blooming purple moss clump that handles toxin as opposed to poison. Toxin is a more vicious form of poison which quickly leads to death. Moss clumps without a flower are useless against toxin, and a lack of these moss clumps could lead to an early demise. And they definitely can. There aren't many things that afflict toxin damage, or inflict toxin damage. It's the blowpipe archers in the undead, not Undead Berg, in Blighttown that do that. Pretty frustrating if you're not prepared for them, but we're going to make sure to stock up on some purple moss clumps before we go down there. She sells a lot of poison-related stuff. Poison throwing knives, the dung pies, the alluring skulls. She also sells charcoal pine resin, an item called the Transient Curse, rotten pine resin, which adds poison, homeward bones, prism stones for humanity, and a purging stone. Some pretty weird items for her to have, especially Transient Curse, which we're going to examine later when we go through New Londo. That's not an item we're going to be eating for a while. She also sells fire, poison, standard, large, and wooden arrows, as well as standard, heavy, and wooden bolts, similar to the other ended merchant.
This is a wonderful place, don't you think? We have water, moss, moisture, these nice iron bars. I like it here, I really do. Nothing good ever happened to me in life, but now that I'm undead, I've never been happier. At about time. There are nothing but hollows in these parts. Save for me, of course. You're undead too, aren't you? You be careful then. Go down along the side to reach the depths of the undead berg. Only unkempt crooks and liars to be found there. Hardly a place for a lady like myself. But who knows? Maybe you'd fit right in. Drat! What a humdrum lad you are.
Yeah, so some interesting dialogue we got from the second undead merchant. You'll see sometimes being undead isn't all that bad. There is a stigma associated with it, but for some people, that's not a big deal, because the stigma associated with perhaps being poor or destitute in another country or another nation isn't as bad as being undead, which is something to think about. Something that is as widely feared and even hated as being undead isn't as bad as being poor in some country. That kind of leads you to wonder about the state of the world in the outside, and whether or not this whole Age of Dark, Age of Fire thing makes sense to the outside world, but we can assume it does, because we've heard of nations collapsing from outbreaks of the undead, as we've seen in the nation of Baldur. Yeah, so there are a couple of dogs here. Dogs are one of the more annoying enemies in the game because of how fast they are. They inflict bleed. They can dodge your attacks actually using iframes with a jump back attack. But it appears they didn't do that. So we're up here now at the Capra Demon boss, Fog. Honestly, man, fuck this boss. We'll see if this dude can help us out a little bit. And I can also show you the summoning animation for regular phantoms if it doesn't fail. Dark Souls is kind of notorious for having very bad network code, so summons don't usually go through unless you follow a series of pretty rigorous steps. Oh, nice. He actually did come through. That's cool. Alright, so first things first, we're going to traverse the white light, and up comes the Capra Demon. Alright, so this guy, he's kind of one of the gimmick boss fights. He has... You'll see that he has these two dogs here. Oh my god. And these two dogs can be pretty annoying. We're going to let... Oh, you saw that? He fucking... Oh my god! We're actually gonna get killed by the dog. That's super embarrassing. Okay, so we took a double chug of our Estus Flask. This guy is using one of the alternate strategies for this boss, and that is using the stairs to perform plunging attacks, which can be pretty useful. So you come up here, you can plunge down on him like that. And by repeatedly doing that, it can save you some hassle, because early in the game, you might not have damage to deal with him in a straight-up boss fight. Man, this dude is a fucking lifesaver, let me tell you that. So, as you can see from his boss area, this can be an extremely frustrating boss to fight for a new player, especially early in the game. Although it is worth noting that he is completely optional. You don't need to fight him at all, because the depths really only serves as a way to get to Blighttown. And there is an alternate way to get to the depths, which is using the Master Key and going through the back way of Blighttown. But we're going to fight him, or we fought him now, because he's kind of one of those early game bosses that most new players are going to fight, especially if they didn't take the Master Key. Very hard if you don't have the right equipment. I've been killed by this guy countless times, especially the first time I started playing. The important thing to know is this boss fight is kind of decided by the first couple seconds, or first few swings of his machetes. So when you come through this boss gate, you're not going to want to stand here, because then it's going to let the Capra Demon run up on you, and it's also going to let the dog on the stairs run up on you. And if you get clipped by either one of those, without having any sort of poise, you're going to get stunned, and then that leads to you not being able to roll out of the demon's attacks, and that could be a pretty quick exit for you. So you want to run up here, to around this point, and then either get him to use his jumping attack or start his regular attack, and then, roll backwards, and then you can sprint around to this side, and then try to get up the stairs as fast as you can. He will follow you up the stairs, as will the dogs, but sometimes you can stay right here, and this allows the dogs to get to you, but not the demon. I'm not sure if he can use his jumping attack and still hit you here. It would make sense if he could, but I've never been hit by it over here. This lets you take out the dogs one by one. Having a fast weapon for this one is a little bit more important, and also having fast dodges, because he has very punishable openings, but his attacks are very long and they're very wide-reaching. So if you aren't able to fast roll to be able to dodge in and then get a couple quick hits off, it's going to be kind of a long, drawn-out fight. But definitely kill the dogs first. A lot of times they're going to be more dangerous than the boss, especially if they manage to bleed you. And what bleed does is that it inflicts percentage health damage based on the strength of the bleed effect. So what we got off camera, I realize now, is the bandit's knife, and you'll see that down there on auxiliary effects under the param bonus, it has a bleed value of 300, and I believe, if I remember correctly, each 100 on the bleed effect corresponds to 10% of your health. So inflicting a full bleed bar, in addition to damaging you for however much the weapon attacks do, it will hit you instantly for 30% of your health. And that is not 30% of your current health, that's 30% of your maximum health. So if you are low, and I mean even sometimes at low levels at half HP, and you get hit by a bleed effect, you're going to die, which can be very frustrating. And since everything in the lower ended burg, with the exception of a couple hollows, inflict a bleed, it can be a very good idea to keep an eye on your bleed meter, keep some blood red moss on you if you're having trouble, and keep your shield up, because a lot of shields are going to help you block status effects, including poison and bleed. But we beat him, and what he drops is the key to the depths, and he also gave us a demon great machete, one of his rare drops, and you can get them later in the game. Like I said when we fought the Taurus demon, both the Taurus and Capra demons become regular area enemies later on in the game, and they become respawning enemies too, so you'll have time to farm those items if you need them. Let's see, what item descriptions have we gotten that we have not gone through? Yes. Mailbreaker, found on a body in the lower ended burg, which I will show you to you. It's a thrusting sword, and it's a standard small thrusting sword, unsharpened but pointed solid shaft, can pierce through armor. Can be thrust using the weight of one's body and is very effective for critical attacks. Not a great weapon. Just straight up not that good. Base damage is very bad, doesn't have any sort of auxiliary effect really. I don't know if the Mailbreaker has the effect of being able to break through shields with its strong attacks, as some of the special daggers do. Might be worth a try to test out, but I never use this weapon. It's pretty awful. The critical damage also isn't that great. On 120, we compare that to the bandit's knife, which is another critical weapon, and not only is it stronger physical damage, better scaling with dexterity at B instead of C, but it also has the bleed effect and 147 critical damage, so it's, I mean, pretty much it's a straight upgrade, except it doesn't have the thrusting attack. What else did we get? Just got the Demon Great Machete. Scales with B in strength, and requires 40 strength to wield, weighs 18 pounds, with a base physical damage of 133. The lesser Capra demons use these great swords in pairs. The blade is cast iron and hooked. The sword is imbued with no particular magic, but for those who have the strength, its great weight will smash foes mercilessly. So this is kind of like the demon's great hammer from the Asylum demon, or the Taurus demon's demon great axe. They're just kind of big hunks of metal that are used to fuck people up. Pretty cool looking weapon though, and these guys can dual wield them. But you'll see without the strength level to wield them, it's pretty pathetic. I don't think we're going to have the strength to wield these either. So we'll stick with the Claymore. We also got two different item sets, the Thief and Black Leather, and the Sorcerer's set. Hat worn by a proper sorceress who studied at Vinheim Dragon School. The majority take pride in having studied at the academy and look down on breaking the formal dress code established for sorcerers. So that is an item description shared between all of the sorcerer equipment. And we picked that up in the house that we saved Griggs of Vinheim in, and I'll show you that as well. The other item set we got was the Thief Mask. Mask of Sinners. They hide their faces, stifle their voices, and hide in the shadows. It does not provide much in the way of defense. And he's right. Bleed resist of 9, poison resist of 12. Doesn't weigh very much, doesn't give much defense, but it looks pretty cool. I think it's my favorite helm, so I tend to use that throughout most of the game until I get some of the later item sets. I'll show you where we picked this up actually right now since we're so close. A theme of this area is ambush. These guys are, believe me when I say, these are some of the more annoying enemies. They can inflict bleed with their bandits' knives, and they also travel in trios, which can make it very hard to separate them. They have unique backstab animations, and like Baldur Knights, they can parry you. That's something that is very, very not fun. But not strong enemies, and their regular attacks don't do that much damage. So, if you're having trouble, take it slow, keep your shield up. A lot of their attacks will rebound, and don't let them get behind you because they will backstab you. Sorry, I had to move away from the mic. I think I'm getting sick. I have a pretty bad sore throat. So this is the house that we got the Thief's Mask and Black Leather set from. You go up these stairs. Usually you're going to trigger that ambush by walking down here. Be wary of lying in ambush. A good piece of advice. These doors will burst open, and then the thieves will come out. And this is actually right here, this spot, right before this archway, is where you can aggro the 2 dogs that are going to be guarding the Capra Demon's fog gate from over here. So before triggering that ambush, you're probably going to want to deal with the 2 dogs. Otherwise, you're going to have a group of 5 enemies that can inflict bleed that are quick attacking, and that's definitely not something you want to be dealing with at a low level. More dogs. There are 3 dogs in the upper level proportion. Really? I'm gonna go watch in a second. Did you record it? Yeah, I can. Okay, cool, thank you. That was my father coming in to tell me that one of the Giants players that I follow is on the Panel for MLB Network, which is pretty cool. Okay, so like I was saying, there are 3 dogs in this section of the lower Undead Burg. We're actually going through the back way, so they're not aggroing the way we usually would. You see that staircase over there is how we would usually get into this area, and I'll show you the way that we can do that in a second. Here is the second or the first ambush if you're coming the right way. These 3 guys will pop out of the houses. That guy throws throwing knives. All of them have the opportunity to throw throwing knives, and they will stagger you if you do not have poise. So you want to be careful. They also have this kind of weird flip attack. It's kind of cool. But they're assholes, so. Hollow Thief's Hood. Interesting. So yeah, they can drop their equipment as well. And the Hollow Thief's Hood, we'll see how it's different from the Thief's Mask. It has slightly less defense in some areas, more in others, and it weighs 0.1 pounds lighter, which is not that big a deal. Hood worn by Hollow Thieves, used to hide a guilty countenance. Yeah. Not much more to say. Pretty shitty armor. Not as cool looking as the Thief's Mask either. In this house, one of these houses has the mail breaker. I think this house over here has that body in there would have the mail breaker on it. I know one of the YouTubers I watch that does Dark Souls playthroughs he kind of uses the mail breakers to keep track of what new game he's on, because you can only get 1 per game. So those 3 dogs are probably some of the more annoying enemies. They can gang up on you if you're not careful, but you can bottleneck them on that staircase. This house over here is opened with the residence key, and it holds Griggs of Vinheim, and then this barrel can be broken, that body will fall, and that holds the Sorcerer's set. We'll see how Griggs is different from the Sorcerer we found in that house a little bit later. Make it back to Firelink Shrine and exhaust his dialogue options. But this is another ambush. Yet again, a common theme in the lower Undead Burg, and we saw that through the basement key item description, which straight up told us, don't turn your back on the thieves, watch out for the dogs, and then watch out, by extension, for the ambushes. But these guys are more dangerous, actually, than normal hollows, because their torches deal a pretty significant amount of damage, especially if you don't have fire defense. And they can stun lock you much like the other enemies in the game if you have low poise, so watch out for that. Here is the normal entrance into this level. Oh yeah, that ambush over there, if you clear it and then go to the right, it has a Twin Humanities on that body. This is the normal area that you're going to be using to access the lower Undead Burg. Up here is a shortcut that you saw us go through to that first part of the level, leading to the Undead Burg bonfire. And here is the ladder that leads up to the bridge that we fought the Drake on, or past the Drake. We didn't really fight him. I'll show you guys that here, just so there's no confusion about how we got here in the first place. It's a very long ladder. And this is the door that's opened using the basement key that we got from the Ended Parish. And there is the Drake's Bridge. If we tried to cross now, he'd kill us. He'd come back flying through this way and then breathe fire on us. And that's not a fun way to die. So we're not going to go back that way. Actually, it's kind of funny because we don't really have another reason to go back to the Ended Parish. Or at least not from that way. We can just head back through via that shortcut in the Firelink Shrine, so I don't think we're ever going to be seeing that Drake again. Unless we want the Drake Sword, which at this point, since we have the Claymore already, and we're going to be upgrading it, we don't. Yeah, if you kill the Drake, if you get him to hop down and then beat him in single combat, he will die permanently and then won't show back up. But for most players, that's not really going to be useful. You'll notice that the Capra Demon and Taurus Demon didn't drop souls, as some of the other bosses in the game will, and neither did the Gargoyles, because these are not unique bosses. We'll see more Gargoyles when we get to Anorlondo, and we'll see Taurus and Capra Demons when we make it to Lost Izalith. So that's cool. That is probably going to do it for this episode. The Depths is a big area, and that's a lot to cover. And because this episode is already running up 35-40 minutes, I think that's going to do it for now. We'll talk to Griggs of Vinheim next episode. We'll start on the Depths next episode, and we might be able to actually tackle the Gaping Dragon depending on how fast we do some of these things. Oh, new motherfucker! You know, out of any way to die, that's probably the least frustrating. You know, it's Dark Souls, deaths are going to happen. If you get attached to your character and attached to your souls, you're probably not going to get as much out of this game as somebody who is not as attached. You want to be okay with dying, because it's going to happen whether you want it to or not, and despite your best efforts. So being able to cope with that, and being able to cope with losing a lot of souls and humanity, is something that's very important. Oops. You know what? I've never really given it much thought, but that might actually be another theme of Dark Souls, impermanence. Because it's very easy to die, and very easy to lose things permanently, so that might be one of those things that we explore going forward, and see if there's more evidence of that being a core concept. But we retrieved it without too much difficulty. So we're just going to go ahead and run back down to Firelink Shrine Bonfire, level up before the end of the episode, and then I will let you guys go. Here is Griggs of Vinheim. When you free him from that room and talk to him, this is where he ends up. And he will stay here for the majority of the game. Alright. Definitely are going to want more endurance. Probably more vitality as well. We can leave faith for a little bit later, because it's not going to be big until we get the Divine Ember anyway, which isn't going to be for a couple more areas. So I guess we'll drop 1 into strength, 1 into endurance, confirm it, and then call it a day. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. Be sure to tell me things that I can do better. Tell me things that I'm doing wrong or not as good, and I'll try to improve them, because this is really, while I'm doing this partially for myself, now I'm also doing it for a couple other people that might be getting something from these videos. So I want to be as consistent as possible, and I want to have them as high quality as possible. Definitely going to try and iron out these technical problems that have been plaguing my videos, and hopefully the next video is not going to be as bad. So until next time, I will see you guys later.